The New Orleans Saints made a quarterback change in their loss to Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday. In a move that surprised some and definitely surprised me, Tyler Shough was named starter for the upcoming Rams game. In today's Saints film room, we'll break down plays of both quarterbacks from Sunday's Tampa Bay game. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. A couple of things before we get into the film breakdown, and I'll explain a little bit more about that towards the end. First thing I have to mention is I was deep in the film room all day Tuesday. So I missed the immediate announcement that Shough was named starter. And I was surprised just because, and especially a little more when we go into depth watching film, that Shough got the start on the road against the Rams, coming off with Tampa Bay's good defensive line, one of the best we faced all year, did to us. Going to what the Rams are going to bring with Verse and Young and Turner and Fisk and whoever else, holy terror they have on that front group coming. I thought Rattler might actually get the start because this is going to be a tough, tough front for our offensive line and our quarterback to have to deal with. But hey, if you want a litmus test, if you want to see where he's at against the Rams, well, it it's going to be put up or you know what time because they're going to bring it. There's no doubt about that. And honestly, I don't know how good we're going to be able to handle it. Now, as for the actual film itself, quick rundown of everybody. We'll start with the quarterbacks. And I found it very hard to compare their game once I started watching film for two reasons. Um, One, they were both dealing with problems that they had to try to overcome. Shaky offensive line play, and we'll talk about that in depth in a minute. Um, but you had drop passes. You had balls that were bobbled. You had fumbles after making a good pass and a good completion and losing the ball downfield. And pretty much you had no running game for most of the day. And in Chuck's case, no attempt by the time that situation played out into the fourth quarter. And because of that, they almost seemed to be running two different offenses because Rattler seemed to me more downfield, intermediate passing for sure, looking to get more air yards out of the offense, where Shuck came in more of a quick passing game, a lot of short passes in there. It seemed limited reads. It was coming out quick. There's no doubt about it. But in not every play, but majority of their snaps, that's the way it seemed to go one to the other. So I started looking at their numbers. We know Rattler had 15 attempts for 136 yards. Explosive plays, big plays, 10 plus yard pass plays, he had 8. The longest was a 28-yarder to Olave. Shough on 17 attempts on 128 yards. And this is kind of what caught my attention on this after watching the film. Going, so what was the breakdown? Well, his breakdown was 10 plus yards, pass plays, 4. And his longest was 16 yards to Johnson. Now, again, he completely lost the running game. There's no doubt about that. But Rattler didn't have a whole lot to work with before. So I don't even know how much that made a difference. But because of that, it appeared when I was watching the game live that Shough was more decisive and he's getting rid of the ball quicker. But once I started watching film, realizing, yeah, it seems like play calling and scheme has changed to what he was doing, especially later in the game than what they were asking Rattler to do. But honestly, I'm not sure. It's because circumstances and game flow do play a major part in this. And it well, you be the judge when we start looking at film. Now, I think there's two differences, and this may be the illusion also that if it was an illusion that he was getting rid of the ball faster and a little more decisive. Um, he's about 4 to 5 inches taller than Rattler, depending on what listing you look at. But the Saints have it 6'5" versus 6 foot even. Doesn't sound like a lot, but in a game of inches, that's a lot. And it really looked like he did look like he had an easier time seeing the field, which kind of makes sense. He's able to more of a top-down view, and he doesn't have to quite worry about fitting balls around pass rushers and stuff like that. And it looked like the receivers were having an easier time catching the ball. Now, I don't know if it was the way he throws it compared to the way Rattler throws it, because I think they both got fairly strong arms, or but one of the things I'm thinking is, do they see it a little better? Because it is coming out a little higher. It is kind of coming out over the lineman, not necessarily technically through him. Just to bring that up as an observation. Um, Believe me, I'm not saying that's the end all be all being a tall quarterback. Just something I kind of noticed. And I think one that's definitely true. Rattler's the more mobile quarterback out of the two. Unless Shuck does something, but it was night and day, um, in my opinion, about moving around either to escape the pocket or moving around in the pocket to buy a little time and or to get to the scramble drill. That was the big completion to Olave for 28 yards. I think there's a lot more there with Rattler, and that was one of the things I thought they, again, going up against what we're about ready to go up against. Rattler might get one more shot before they turn to Shuck in either the following week or after the bye. Because that mobility, that ability to move and make some stuff happen off schedule with our offensive line is important. Let's talk about our offensive line. I called it shaky, and I have two examples in there. One was a completion, and one was the sack on Chuck, where you kind of got to see both versions of what our offensive line brought with the crazy stuff Bowles can bring on defensive pressures with the fronts, simulated, real blitzes, everything else. In one, on the completion to Alvin, we handled it really, really well, and the other was a total disaster, leading to a sack. They did get beat physically by Tampa Bay defensive linemen. We lost some one-on-ones, and that was part of it, no doubt about it. We won a few, be quite honest. But some of the worst were just where we were unaware of what was happening, or there was a lack of communication or understanding of what was going on. Allow free runners to come in, almost like situational awareness would get turned off at times by some of these offensive linemen, and in some cases, some tight ends, leading to those free runners. Get a couple sacks out of it, but they also got a lot of hits on our quarterbacks during the course of the game. But when we stayed away from that stuff, and we're talking about pass blocking here to be clear, when we stayed away from doing that kind of stuff, kind of held our own. And even though it may not have been the cleanest pockets at times, it gave both quarterbacks a chance when they could do that stuff the right way. Now, lastly, I apologize for kind of shortchanging the defense. Last but not least, right? I, look, outside of that drive in the second quarter that ended with our goal line stand, and that was a hell of a goal line stand. And the first drive in the third quarter, where we completely came apart and still almost bailed it out, getting three-quarters of a way to the goal line stand. They scored the touchdown on fourth down. Everything else was, I felt, relatively solid. Um, the big plays, and we gave up some big ones, kind of all came in those two drives for the most part. When they got one somewhere else in the other drives, it didn't tend to really hurt us. It did in those two drives, and even with the goal line stance, that led to the whole ball on the one and the pick six that came later. Um, but regardless, I think the effort you got out of them was good enough. I'm sorry, I think it was pretty much good enough to give you a win under circumstances. If your offense can score any points and quit turning the ball over, be fair about it. Uh, I thought Chase Young was very, very good. McKinstry, I thought watching the game live was pretty good. Watching the film review, he was maybe even a little better than I'm giving him credit for. I thought in the secondary, Reed, Riley, and Taylor at times they got Tampa Bay got the better of them, but at times they didn't. And a lot of the big plays were kind of, and not just on them, but other defensive backs, some stuff happening back there. But at other times, coverage was really, really good, even on Ibuka. And that's saying a lot because he hasn't been highly covered most of the year. So we did some good things back there. If you get 4 quarters out of it, in really, it was 2 drives that really hurt us. But you get some of that consistent play in there where you really weren't getting it, who knows what happens. The D line, I felt kind of the same thing collectively as a group, including Chase Young. Chris Rump played well. Gottschall had some moments. Bullard had, think, a pretty decent game all up and down that line. It wasn't always good from all of them at the same time, but it was good from most of them to kind of keep things under control. Didn't really let him get their running game off. You brought some pressure. You got some sacks, some big, one of them was a big turnover we needed for the only 3 points we were able to score all day. Again, I think the effort was there. If the offense does anything at all to give you a chance to win the game, like every other home game we had, where you're flirting around within one score. And I think the defense gave you that kind of effort. Just the offense didn't. Um, like I said, I was in the film room when all was breaking about Shough being named the starter, and by the time I got wind of it, that's kind of why I'm shortchanging the defense. I went with more plays from both of them, just to kind of give a comparison, and I'm doing it. It's going to be presented chronological order. The plays you see is, in fact, one of them is the very first pass attempt of the game, first play on offense, Rattler, all the way down to one of Shough's last. He had 1 or 2 passes after that 9-yard completion to Shaheed, kind of working it on down. Just see if you see a progression that the coaches saw, because I don't necessarily know if I see it. I mean, I'm kind of perplexed about this because to me, I honestly feel like one of them did not have a clear better game than the other one in some different circumstances and some of the exact same circumstances mixed in. So my opinion is, and it's not really opinion. It's here's the truthful fact. I don't know. I really don't know, but we'll see on Sunday, won't we? Oh, why don't you go ahead in the comments? Let me know, especially after watching plays I put together. Any you saw on your own. Give me an idea which one you think was actually more deserving. Either Rattler getting which probably would have been his last chance to get the Rams, or if Shough is deserving of the shot this week. Let me know down in the comments. So this is the very first play of the game for the Saints. We come out in 12 personnel. They're showing single high safety. Likely man, possible pressure look in this situation. We had both tight ends on the left side of the formation. Foster Moreau has just gone in motion back towards the right side of the offensive right side of the formation. Is about ready to settle into the slot right here. There's 6 on the line of scrimmage, showing a pressure look, likely playing man. Snap of the ball. They're bringing pressure. They're playing man. Rattler realizes what's going on, and you want to try to throw behind the blitz normally. So he's looking to the right. Olave is going to be open. Dennis, the linebacker, number 8, has a long way to go to cover him and is not going to get there. But you're kind of looking, hey, there's also a space between Shaheed, the corner, and the linebacker coming over. Safety's got eyes on him, but he's in dropping back a little bit, moving back more into cover 2. But there's a lot of space right there. If you get a ball in on him, you're going to pick up a nice gain and possible first down. And sinks right into that space. Rattler makes a good throw. He did do this a couple of times today where they have movement, a player moving, and he throws the ball right behind the player, which he does there. And Dennis is realizing it, but too late. He's trying to slam on the brakes. He can't do it. The corner can't get there in enough time. And that Tyke Smith, who's a really good safety, second-year guy, that was in the box and rotated back more to this too high look, eyes on, realize where everything's going. So he's moving immediately to make the tackle. Because had he laid back and not realized what was going on there, that's the type of play where Shaheed makes that catch and he's going to be able to get up the hash with everybody behind him. And Winfield at the bottom of the screen is the only player that would be able to do anything about it. And he's got a long way to go to try to catch Shaheed. Not likely to happen. We had a couple of plays early in the game when our offense was mostly playing well before it deteriorated. We were just a little bit away from having an explosive big play that would have led to a touchdown, likely been a touchdown. And there was two on the first drive. This one and one a little later to Vele. So this is the first drive, our first third down. It's a 3rd and 8. Need to convert, keep the chains moving. I'm picking this up right before the snap. At the beginning of the play, Tampa was showing mostly a too high safety look. Then they started simulating some pressure, pulling some guys in, backing some guys off. We put Johnson in motion all the way to the outside, down at the bottom of the screen. He's now turned around and going back in motion towards the slot. While all that's going on, they continue to move. And I think we picked up on the fact that they're bringing, not only are they bringing pressure, but they're bringing heavy pressure. At the snap, it doesn't get much heavier than sending 7 guys. So they have 4 guys sitting back in man. We're in a 3 receiver route. The DB on the hash, kind of peeking in the backfield because Johnson is chipping on Yaya Diaby. Neal's back there, and he's looking into Rattler. So he's kind of got a lot of responsibility, and he's just going to kind of sit so he can keep eyes on all 3. Olave and Shaheed both running deep routes and clearing out basically because Vele on the outside is cut back towards the middle of the field where other than that one DB sitting on the hash and he's not even really looking at Vele, he's got enough on his mind. There's some space there. And that's where the ball is going into. I think, like I said, very early use of motion kind of tipped their hand and they were expecting there's a lot of guys coming. Good job by Rattler and Vele to get in that space. Only thing is, the ball gets to Vele, it's kind of back hipped. So he reaches behind him, makes a great catch, and keep his momentum moving forward, which is important because it was about a yard or so after the catch point. Both defenders now have collapsed on him and are making the tackle. And if you notice, he is right on the first down marker right now and then manages to fall forward. So gets about 3 yards after the catch. And that first yard was the very important one because dead stop, catches the ball, then he has to turn and pick up that yard. He may not be able to do it with 2 defenders converging on him. The thing is, if that ball is on time and on target where he catches it in stride and splits those 2 defenders without having to back hip it and slow down a little bit and let him get back in the play, if you notice, there's only 2 other DBs out there. They're both outside the hash near the sidelines. And he's got a straight run up the field, probable touchdown. One of those deals where, okay, we made a really good play to pick up the 8 yards and we get 10 out of it for the first down. Early in the first drive of the game that we have the ball, left an explosive touchdown play on the board. And I think this is yet another example of Devon Vele having great hands, running good routes, making catches that either scored touchdowns or moved the chains. He needs to be on the field more, and we need to get him the ball. So I wanted to pull this one up. Really great job of protection here, which is mind-boggling because sometimes we can be very good, and at other times we can't be. Mentioned in the comments on the last video, we were talking, and I think it kind of comes down to when we can't or won't run the ball. Sometimes, especially the last 2 games, it seems like Moore's almost abandoned the run. And I think once that happens, we get into some bad spots. But when the running game is still on the table, I think we're okay. We're not good or great by any stretch, but we're okay. And this is an interesting one. They're in a 4-man front. Keep your eye all the way to the right. Yaya Diaby. Man, love that name. Really good edge rusher for them. and he's going to stunt and twist back towards the middle of the defensive formation once the ball is snapped. So at the snap, he's actually coming across the form, almost like a motion man from the offense, a receiver in motion, coming across the formation. And initially, he's going to look towards the A gap. Now, we're setting up a combo on number 50, Vele. The other tackle is going to be picked up by Banks. We have a combo on 95, but if you notice, Fuaga is kind of peeking over. All he's going to really do is make sure that Ruiz has this, and he's going to be ready and looking for anything coming either off the edge or in a second, you'll see he's looking back towards the inside. We're in good shape right here. Fortner is realizing that Diaby's trying to come through the A gap. So he's passing off Vele to Trevor Penning, ready to pick up Diaby. And Diaby realizes that the A gap isn't open. So he tries to go all the way back around to C gap, and Fuaga was looking to the inside, picks him up. Now at this point, Vele's about already split that combo block. And there's really nothing going on downfield for Rattler to get rid of the ball. But he's got the little check down to Kamara right past the ear hole of Diaby, who was still trying to figure out a way to get around Fuaga. Now you've got a decent pickup here. And Kamara's one-on-one with Levante David, who's a pretty good linebacker. So we get 9 out of it. This is the play right before the pick six for the touchdown. Seems like this was all day long where we would go, hey, that was a really nice play, backed up on your 1 yard line to pick up 9, get you to 2nd and 1. Head of the chains, we have a chance to get the offense moving, get out the hole, and we throw the pick six literally 30 seconds later. So let's take a look at the pick six. They are showing single high, very likely to be man matchup zone underneath at the worst. So we send Vele in motion. Corner goes with. Rolling out off the play action. They kind of overloaded the offensive line on the offensive left side. We handled that pretty well, kind of washing it down. But nobody on Tampa Bay is really fooled on this. On the off the play action, they're grabbing their guys. Pretty good coverage all the way around. So Rattler's rolling, realizing he doesn't have much yet. He's looking downfield, still doesn't have anywhere to go with the ball. Down here, Stoll was picked up by Nelson. And when Rattler rolled, Nelson let him go to go put pressure on Rattler. And the linebacker's coming over to try to pick up Stoll. So there was a brief moment as Rattler's trying to throw the ball that, yeah, you had an opening right here and not that difficult of a pitch and catch, except you got a pretty tall athletic edge rusher that has gotten himself in between you and the receiver. And this was 2nd and 1. Now, we had a penalty flag down up here because we had an illegal formation. So this was going to be a penalty coming back. But at this point, I didn't even know there was a flag down. It was mentioned after the pick six happened. You can't put the ball in jeopardy this far backed up. And I understand Nelson made just an incredibly athletic play that maybe 1 out of 100, 1 out of 1,000. He's going to jump up, tip the ball to himself, and run into the end zone for a touchdown. So I fully understand that part. But at the same time, I think as your quarterback has got to recognize there is a guy in between us that I'm trying to massage the ball around some kind of way to fit receivers open. If Nelson is not in the way, this is not a tight window. But in this situation, it kind of is. I'd almost rather see him if he feels like he can't get around Nelson. And honestly, I don't think he could because I think Nelson did a really good job breaking off a Stoll to go pick him up so he couldn't get outside. 2nd and 1, throw it away. Now, if he throws it away, in all honesty, it's 2nd and 6 because the penalty for the illegal formation because somebody didn't line up in the right spot. But still, I think this is one of those things, in my opinion, you might have tried to force this just a little bit. Maybe better off, hey, let's just throw this away. We only need a yard. Yeah, this one gets just a little dangerous when you're backed up inside your own 10-yard line. And hats off to Anthony Nelson. He did make one hell of a play on it that you're just not going to see very often. It was a backbreaking play. It was the only score they had in the first half. So this is our longest pass completion of the day. This is Olave catching a 28-yarder from Spencer Rattler. They're showing, like they normally do, some type of single high look, but snap of the ball, we've got a play fake on, and they're actually going to move back into more of a cover two matchup underneath. Rattler's trying to find somewhere to go with the ball. The protection is pretty good right now. Initially, they had 5 going, but one of their players is dropping out back into coverage. Bottom of your screen, Olave's slid into that little space in a typical cover 2 look where you can get it in between the corner and the safety, about the 35-yard line or so. It's kind of settling in there. Rattler's now having to roll, so we've got a little bit of a scramble drill going on here. And this is one thing Rattler does very well. He's mobile and can, as long as the ball isn't getting tipped at the line of scrimmage in front of him, he's normally pretty accurate. And he puts the ball right on Olave towards the sideline, and Olave has to do a little toe tap dance there to get it in. But a great play all the way around, from something that initially looked like we didn't have anything to finding a way to create a play downfield. And like I said, that was the longest gainer of the day, 28 yards. So this is Tyler Shough's first ever NFL completion, first NFL pass, actually. Single high, and they ran a lot of starting off single high looks all day long, but especially when Tyler Shough came in to take over. But rarely did they finish in a single high. This time they actually do. They're kind of single high, a little zone underneath. They're not getting too exotic or too crazy, and neither are we, because if you look back from the beginning of the play, as the snap's coming in, everybody's free releasing off the line on that left side. Taysom's going straight out into the flat. Shough's already getting rid of the ball. And if you look at the pocket, he would have normally had time to stand back there and let some of those longer routes develop. Looks like Olave's in the process of cutting towards the middle of the field. There would have been space there. Johnson's clearing it for him. And he's in a little area of space if he's going to turn and look for the ball anywhere around the hash, or either the near hash or towards the fore hash. The ball's airborne. And Taysom makes a nice little catch, turns upfield, grabs an extra yard or two. Real clean, nice and easy play. And I think that was actually the point on that for Shough. Give him an easy one to start off with. So this is Tyler Shough's interception that he threw. And I think this is a case of, hey, Rook, welcome to the NFL type moment. He had been looking prior to this, and even after this, most of the time when he was in there, there's nothing real elaborate. He wasn't looking for a lot of intermediate shots or downhill shots, although he took a few. But most of it was get it out quick, get it into space to receivers. Pocket is fairly clean, but it is coming apart, and that's a common thing to see most of this game. So initially, I mean, he wasn't getting blown up right away, but it wasn't going to last much longer. So sitting there holding the ball was not going to really be an option. But he didn't really have any place to go with it either. Now he's looking at Olave standing right on the 50 or 49, thinks he's got an opening. That defensive back, that's free safety Antoine Winfield, who had rotated up into the box. Their normal box safety, Tyke Smith, is back on the one high look. And Winfield closes fast. So he zings a ball in there, and it had a lot of juice on it, and gets to Olave. Kind of got to jump for it, and he's turned a little bit towards Winfield. doesn't make a clean catch. And that, because Winfield's on him now. So if it wasn't clean and tucked, Winfield's going for the ball. That's what he does. He's really good at getting it out, which is what he does. Technically an interception because the ball never was controlled by Olave or hit the ground or whatever. Luckily, he was down by contact. Otherwise, we'd had our second pick six of the game. But I think that was just a look that if you feel like you got to throw the ball right there, and he probably had to because I don't think anybody was breaking open in the next second or so. And around the 2 second mark, he was going to have a lot of pressure in his face and probably likely not able to do anything. You might just have to take a throwaway there. And after 6 years of college football, and I'm not trying to be funny. I mean, he played 6 years and he's got a strong arm. Majority of the teams he faced, that was probably a wide open look. You zip the ball in there. It doesn't matter if he bobbles it a little bit. He's going to catch it and be able to turn upfield because, well, that's not NFL safeties. You're, for the most part, playing against week in, week out. That was kind of one of those moments he was probably had to have a oh poop moment and went, yeah, no, that one might be a throwaway situation. If I feel like the pocket isn't going to hold and I can't get out of there, at least for right now, that's too tight of a window for him to be throwing balls in against a guy like Antoine Winfield. Maybe someday, but I think day one, probably not the best idea. And just be aware of it because you're gonna face more safeties who can really cover ground fast and get to the ball and get it out really quick. So this is a nice 9 yard pass, Tyler Shough to Chris Olave. Tampa Bay's kind of showing a heavy box, but look, at this point in the game, we weren't running the ball. They were sending four, maybe five, and teeing off on our offensive linemen, trying to get to Shough, but mostly dropping back in coverage. So I don't think anybody's buying this heavy box with the single high safety look. We had Chris Olave in the offensive left of the formation. He went in motion down to the offensive right, so he's headed to the bottom of your screen. They're not really doing any type of man adjustment. And it's looking like they're falling back in almost to a too high look with zone underneath. I think everybody knew it from the Saints' perspective because Shough sets up quick and he's looking to the outside to Olave. The corner's got to kind of come down on him. So the ball's already in the air. Olave's turning back towards the quarterback. It's right on him. And he's able to grab it, make a little turn, grab a few extra yards, get close to the first down marker. Really quick, good recognition, get rid of the ball quick, give him a catchable ball, and let him pick up the first down or nearly pick up the first down. Now, here's a play where they show the single high look and they're single high playing man. They're going to bring some pressure. And we have Juwan Johnson lined up on the slot on the left hand side. So that single high look, you got everybody's manned up on a route. Shough's already looking to the left, looking for somebody to break open and get the ball to. And I think he's kind of seeing now. Juwan gets the inside position on the defensive back. Little hand fighting, push off, whatever is going on there. But gets open to the outside. And at this point, that ball is already in the air. And Johnson hadn't even turned back to look at Shough. Ball's en route. He's already thrown it. And it's incoming to Johnson, who catches it, kind of falls down on the catch. Normally, I'd be a little upset because I didn't think it was a catch where you couldn't catch it and try to turn upfield and get some extra yards. However, Juwan Johnson hasn't exactly been outstanding with the hands week after week. So you get a 15-yard completion right here. Great job. Pick up the first down. So I'm just more than happy that he caught the ball and gave us a, plus 10, considered an explosive play. So I'll take it, but feel like that 15 could have been 16, 17, 18, who knows. But the way things were going, especially in this game, catch the ball, hang on to the ball. Let's keep the chains moving. And here's another example of kind of understanding where he needs to go with the ball and get it out quick. Again, showing single high, a man look, a pressure look. There's a lot of guys sitting there on the line of scrimmage, roughly about 7 of them, or exactly 7 of them. We have a little motion down at the bottom of the screen, and it is kind of indicating a man look. But you also had defensive back at the top kind of drop off, so more of a too high safety with some man underneath. Recognizing this, Olave gets a little bit of a pick down there, able to set up and then come back for the out route. Shough puts the ball right on him. Chance to turn upfield, get some yards. Pretty much everybody else was covered. This was the only place the ball was going to go on this play. Even though it wasn't heavy pressure, it was a 4-man rush. At this point in the game, we were throwing it every down. They were coming every down, and that pocket would get tight and tough very quick. So it started out pretty good, went south kind of fast, but Shough was able to handle it, realize what he needed to do, get rid of the ball quick, gets it to Olave, and in a position where Olave's able to sneak a couple extra yards out on yards after the catch. I showed earlier when we were backed up on the 1-yard line, a pretty good job of the offensive line doing everything they needed to do to pick up what the defense was trying to do, and it worked out pretty well. This is a miserable fail. This is how it kind of was all day long. For the most part, we did a good job of picking up what they were trying to do. We still gave up some pressures because physically we were getting beat at times. But when we failed picking up what they were trying to do, those are the really tough hits, the sacks that we were giving up. And right here, they put both their edge. Diaby and Nelson are both on the defensive right. Nelson has Juwan Johnson in front of him. Diaby's in the B gap. He's right in between Penning and Banks. Vele lines up in the A gap opposite of them. And at the snap of the ball, Johnson and Nelson kind of play patty cake. It doesn't look like Johnson had any reason to chip or was trying to chip, because if he was, he missed horribly. Nelson kind of held him up for a second, and then he's going in. We're comboing Diaby. And Banks has him, but you're going to see in a second what they're really doing here. And Diaby's just bull rushing Banks. Nelson looks like he's going outside. Penning, not even looking in that direction. I don't even think he realizes what's going on yet. He's looking back towards the inside where Vey is comboed, and Flaga has his man one-on-one. Diaby is just pushing Banks out of the way to give Nelson a free run in at Tyler Shough, and Penning has no idea what's going on. He is looking over to the inside where the two defensive linemen on that side with 3 blockers on him, pretty good shape. Alvin has moved over there for some reason. So nobody is noticing that Nelson's about ready to have a free run, except, oddly enough, our center, Luke Fortner, has just been clued in. Now he's trying to disengage and get around Penning, while Banks is trying to fight through that bull rush and try to get a piece of Nelson. They both get close, but not really, because he's got a free shot into Shough and gets a sack on the play. Diaby's there to help clean it up. At this point, they know, and they had been known for a while, we weren't going to run the ball or even try. For the most part, they were sending 4 and getting moderate to very good pressure. But at times, we did give them a fairly clean pocket to operate out of for a few seconds. They're showing zone. We're getting close to the red zone. They're not getting overly exotic here. I think this is the point where we're just going to try to keep everything in front and make tackles. So Shough takes the snap, and he's kind of looking at the top of the screen initially. I think he was seeing if he could get Juwan Johnson open on something going deep to the left side. Not really there, so looks back to the right. Olave's going to be covered. He's kind of in the teeth of the zone with everybody dropping, and that middle linebacker right in front of him. So it's either going to be try to take the deep shot with Cooks down the right sideline, or take the 9 yards that you're going to get because Shaheed sees the space in between all three of those defenders, and he's curling up right in it. So as he's turned, Shuck's releasing the ball, makes the catch, kind of goes down right here. Yeah, I would have liked to see maybe an attempt at yards after the catch again, like we said after the Juwan Johnson catch. But also, again, we caught a pass, held on to it, and let's take the 9 yards, I guess, and not put the ball in jeopardy that they were going to punch another one out because it was late in the game and we were trying real hard to get a score right here. Didn't work out for us, but I guess I understand the sentiment. That's all we have for you today. And, you know, like I said, let me know in the comments if anything I was able to present or anything you saw in your own, and let me know what it is that clearly would indicate either Shuck, yep, let's go right now with him, or, you know, let's go with the mobile, more experienced guy against that really good front that's going to be coming at him. So it's going to be a battle tested test under fire for Tyler Shough, without a doubt. And speaking of the Rams game in the end of the week, we will break it down somewhat. A big part of it is the defensive line, which we've touched the surface on, but also keeping an eye on what's going on with the trade deadline. And we may have banged up some guys in the coming out of the Tampa Bay game that their health status could affect whether or not we're going to trade them. Just kind of getting wind of that this morning in the Twitter and the website rumor mill, which may not be true, but could be something to keep an eye on. And I think that's going to be also a large portion of Friday's conversation. So if you like what you saw, please hit the like, share, subscribe, let everybody know. Let's feed the algorithm, make everything, um, make it very happy with us, and we can keep growing the community, growing the channel together. And I appreciate all your help in that. So till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out, and who dat.